I'd like to call to order the regular Board of Education meeting for Zumwalt School District. If you stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Roll call, Mrs. Green.
Tom?
Yes.
Tommy?
Yes.
Craig?
Here.
Gabriel? Gabriel is here, but he's
Yes.
WebEx.
Can you hear me?
Gabriel, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can. Can you hear me? I can hear you.
We can hear you.
You can hear me? I can hear you too.
Yep, we got you. All right, thank you. He's here.
Erica? Here. Mike?
Yes, here.
John Callahan is absent, but I believe he is gonna be here in a bit.
All right, great. Thank you very much. I need a motion for the adoption of the agenda that you have before you this evening. Howard, second. Evans, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Recognition, Dr. DeBray. We have some pretty wonderful people here tonight.
We do, and it took us a whole year to get them in here from last year when they won their state championship. So we have Jim Lane, our boys soccer coach, and Leanne Sanders, our girls soccer coach. Kevin Keltner, our principal, is here, several of the players, and we wanted to get them in so the board could recognize these two individuals for this great accomplishment, because it is a statewide accomplishment of winning both boys and girls soccer championships in the same year. So let me introduce Kevin, and Kevin, you can bring the coaches forward and have them introduce their players.
Good evening, Mr. Swearingen, Dr. DeBray, members of our Board of Education and administrators. It's my distinct honor to bring to you a couple of unique programs that we have here. I've said it to you before, our extracurricular programs at South High School are kind of like the porch light that we have. The exciting things we do in academics are well storied and exciting, but I have yet to have a kid stand up and cheer in a math class. I can get 1,000 of them to do it at a soccer game. And that porch light highlights the things that we do and calls attention to the great things that are happening at South High School. We have a number of wonderful activities, and as I tell our kids all the time, if you come to high school at 7:25 in the morning and leave at 2:25, as I look at freshmen each year, I said, you have just missed high school. There's a lot more stuff going on. The St. Louis Post-Dispatch honored South High School this summer, if you recall, naming South High School as its large school athletic program of the year. It's the first time in recent memory when a public school has earned that honor, and much of it is because of the individuals you see behind us, or behind me here this evening. Last fall, about this time, Fort Zumwalt South boys soccer team, after capturing a third place in 2014, another third place in 2016, winning the state championship in 2018, last fall in 2020, they captured another state championship. They followed that up then with our girls program last spring in 2021, capturing the state championship, them having finished third as well in 2017, but having our boys and girls win the state championship in the same year is the first time in the history of the state of Missouri that a public school has won both the boys and girls soccer state championships in the same year. Topping that all off, our boys team just had a wonderful Saturday evening as they won in quarterfinal action with a come-behind win against Rockwood Summit, and this Friday and Saturday, they're headed to the Final Four again to see if they can do it one more time. And so I'm hoping we're back here again in short order to recognize them again. With us this evening are our head boys soccer coach, Mr. Jim Lane, and our head girls soccer coach, Ms. Leanne Sanders. And Mr. Lane and Ms. Sanders have a few of their athletes with them. And ladies and gentlemen, I'll let you, Coach Lane, Coach Sanders, why don't you come up and fill us in on your programs. Introduce us to some players.
All right. Hi, as Dr. Cutler said, I'm Leanne Sanders. This was actually my first year as the head coach for the girls soccer team, so it was kind of a cherry on the top of a great season to end up with that state championship. We want to thank you guys for having us in. I know it was a long time coming. With all the craziness with the start of the school year, it's really nice to come and see you guys. I would say the one thing that the girls behind me would all attest to, and I would say the boys even would agree, I think our soccer programs as a whole have a very team first mentality. And I think that starts really young and has been developed all through their years of growing up here, but they all came together. And I think it's a true testament to how much they work together and how strong they are supporting each other to see kind of what we were able to do this year. It's absolutely amazing to see the group of boys and girls not only, you know, out there working hard on the soccer field, but then supporting each other on the other side of it and cheering each other on. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
She kind of stole my thunder there, but I'm going to do a takeoff.
That's why I went first.
I'm going to do a takeoff of what she said. I think the biggest thing about not just our soccer programs, but really our school in general is just that family community aspect. Everyone just kind of supporting one another. And it was great to see all the boys and all the girls, all of last year, and now even part of this year, supporting one another from the very beginning to the very end. And for them both to win a state title is obviously very special. When you look kind of at the both of the teams, there's just so many similarities. How balanced of a group that they were, both offensively and defensively. Stellar goalkeeping obviously helped us get to where we wanted to be. But I think the other thing that really kind of comes to mind is just how unselfish they are as individuals, and that just showed on the field. It was not just a 1 or 2 person show. It was the entire group, all 20 and 24 of them, which you need that in order to have the type of season that both of these two teams had. So like Dr. Keltner said, the boys are playing again this weekend in the Final Four, so hopefully we'll be back here maybe in a month and not a year from now to celebrate another one, so thank you. Real quick, I'd like to introduce the players that are with us. On the boys' side are the 4 captains from last year and this year. First is Luke Dillon. Next is Carson Gibbs. Jeff Jelinek. And Ryan Harberton. All 4 of these players, they've actually won 2 state titles. They won in 2018 as freshmen, and then last year, and then going for a 3rd, hopefully, this weekend. They're all state players, and Carson was an All-American last year.
And then from the girls' side, we have Brooke Couture, Abby Hacker, Ashlyn Smith, and Sarah Bozeman. And obviously, this is their first state championship, but I would argue that they're very hungry for their next one. So come out in the spring and help us win that next one.
Okay, coaches and players, we have a couple of plaques from the Board of Education. One for Jim, one for Leanne.
Fantastic.
And I want to just say, it's one thing for our kids to win state championships. You ought to see the cities, how proud they are of these teams, because they bring them into alderman meetings and councilman meetings, and they really are proud of the accomplishments of this high school. And it helps sell their city, that we've got this kind of performance, this kind of character in our teams. And I think you would be just as proud as I am when you go to those meetings and see the alderman and the councilman recognize them for their accomplishments. So that was really rewarding for me, not to mention coming to the games and watching them. So let's see.
Come in front of the podium, guys. And
Well, let's move the podium.
let's
Why
put
don't you guys
this
bring the trophy?
trophy together.
Yes.
There's not many state trophies that you see, so this is pretty impressive.
Piece of walnut,
We're
isn't
gonna
it?
have to.
You're good. Yep, you're good there.
There they are. There they are. Okay. All right. Congratulations. Congratulations. I need one more picture from you guys, though, of all those rings together. Get them all in there. There we go. Oh, hang on. All right.
Here.
All right.
Put mine on. There you go.
That way. Oh, look, they show their nails so nice. Good job.
Thank you for being here.
Coach Lane, what time on Friday?
is at 1:30. So a request by me, any way we can get a huge student presence there would be awesome. Might be a little far-fetched, but it would be nice to have a huge student and community presence at the game on Friday.
Where are you gonna be?
What's that?
Where?
Soccer park in Fenton.
Okay.
So anything that we could do would be fantastic.
Thank you. Just so you guys may, Coach Lane, after a very accomplished social studies career, took over some stuff, some much needed stuff in our industrial technology program, and you should see him working with kids in the classroom. And on top of coaching soccer, today I got to stand in and watch Coach Sanders in an AP physics class, and if you want to talk about force of acceleration, force of gravity, tension force along
No one wants
the
to.
top of it's pretty impressive to watch that as well, and so
We highly
congratulations.
appreciate you.
Thanks.
Kevin, you might as well stay right up
Okay.
here.
We can do that.
We do have another recognition item. Kelly Lunsford, teacher at South, has been selected as the Post-Dispatch November Teacher of the Month. And if Kelly will come up, Kevin will say a little bit about her, and I think the Post-Dispatch is here as well.
Once again, it's good to have some South High School people here, but I was surprised last year when my secretary walked in and said, or last week, when she said, Jennifer Broach from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch is on the phone for you. Can you, and we got mixed up. I had to give her a call back, and she said, we just got a note from Ms. Lunsford, one of her former teachers, and we have an honor we'd like to present with her. We've arranged to be here with you tonight. So Ms. Broach, if you want to make your presentation, we can go from there.
Absolutely. I do it this way, not
Yes,
this way.
let's do it this way for right now.
Okay, that sounds great. Will do. Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Jenny from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. We've discussed this. I do newspapers and education there. Newspapers and education is a great program. It's free year-long access for all educators, K through 12, to get our newspaper for their teachers, students, and their families. And we also have K through 12 content and lesson plans as well. On another note, on behalf of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch Newspapers and Education and Elko Chevrolet, we would like to recognize Ms. Kelly Lunsford as our November Teacher of the Month. So Mrs. Lunsford was nominated by student Landry Reynolds, former or
She's my current student.
current student. Okay,
Yep.
okay. Mrs. Lunsford, so here's her nomination. Mrs. Lunsford is the best because she is so dedicated to teaching the Spanish language and culture, and that's what makes it so interesting. Mrs. Lunsford was one of the first that made me want to minor in Spanish in college and become fluent myself. She's given me faith that I can achieve my goals. She never fails to make me smile with her kind words and stories. And she never fails to put in the extra work and time to make sure we are all okay on a personal level. I never thought Spanish would stick with me the way it did, but it amazes me how much I want to stay in her class and learn more. I'm so excited to explore the world around me and continue the journey towards my final destination after school and into the real world. And it's all thanks to Senora Lunsford. We say thank you to Elko Chevrolet for your generous gift of $250 in this very large check. And Mrs. Lunsford at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, we want to thank you for everything you do for your students. We are happy to have you.
Thank you so much. Okay, together.
Yeah.
Did you get in there, Kelly?
Perfect. Great job there.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Ms. Lunsford began her teaching career at Roosevelt High School, experienced that for about 3 years, and we brought her in about a decade ago. She quickly rose through the ranks on things, teaches our upper level Spanish, is our world languages department chair, handles a number of things throughout the building. Her husband, Mike, stand up. Her husband's here with her tonight, and so we couldn't be more proud of her. Thank you for taking time to recognize her this evening.
All right, next item we have is presentation.
Yes, we have a presentation of our annual audit. which is an independent audit by a firm that's under contract to the school district. Jeff, do you want to make any comments before our presentation?
Andrew Isabel is the manager on the job, and he's gonna present the findings, which it's all clean. I'm sure he'll tell you that. So.
Yep, so if there's not a state award issued for a clean audit, or a good finance department, but I hope you guys really understand how good of a resource we have in Jeff. I will go through the results, the scores and highlights of the audit. It's about a 55-page report. We're not going to go through the whole thing. I'm just going to go over the details, let you know the results, let you know where we stand. My name's Andrew Zabel. I'm a principal or partner with CLA. I lead our state and local government practice here in St. Louis, Tennessee, and Illinois. I work with 8 other school districts in the state of Missouri, so I have a lot of experience and exposure to organizations the size of Fort Zumwalt. But I can say that you guys do have a great resource in Jeff, and you should be appreciative of that because he makes your job and owning the finances extremely easy with your organization. So I'm going to go through, it's only a few slides. Just quickly go over the table of contents here. I'm going to cover some financial highlights. So the financial statements you'll see in our report are single year. It only covers 2021. It's not going to be comparative. A quick executive summary. There's required communications from auditors that we're required to communicate to those that are charged with governance. And then some forward-looking things you guys might want to consider for future years. So from the financial highlights, fiscal year 21, total assets in line with 2020. However, your capital lease and long-term debt obligations declined by about 14.3 million. These financial statements are on a cash basis. So as if you're looking at your own checking account, this is not going to show long-term debt, capital assets, other non-current type of assets or obligations. However, your footnote disclosures do include what your future long-term obligations might be. When you look at your receipts and disbursements, Fort Zumwalt had about $226 million of cash receipts during the year. That's up about $9.6 million from fiscal year 20. That's largely driven by 50-50 split between as a result of property taxes, so increased assessed valuations, and more federal funding through CRF dollars and ESSER funds. So quickly to cover the scope of our services, we have an opinion on the financial statements. We have an examination on the district's compliance with Missouri laws as it relates to attendance, transportation, and food service. The third and fourth items here, one's your internal controls over financial reporting. The fourth is internal controls over compliance as it relates to federal programs. So that is what we call our single audit. That is related to the federal expenditures that you guys have during the year associated with federal programs, for example, Title I, IDEA, ESSER, the coronavirus relief funds. The status of our work, so we're done. We're simply waiting on Jeff to sign one report for us, and then we will have our financial statements issued, which will also be dated today. Just to quickly highlight the major federal programs that we tested, Fort Zumwalt has probably the highest amount of federal awards for any school district in the state of Missouri, top 5 at least. During fiscal year 2021, we had $19.1 million of federal awards. We audited 56% of that, or $10.7 million. The programs that we focused our time and energy on was the ESSER dollars and the coronavirus relief fund. All of those two were included within the CARES program, or those expenditures. In addition to that, we audited IDEA program. That's going to be a recurring program that recurs throughout every single year. And the results, an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, an unmodified opinion on the state compliance work, and a clean report on the single audit, which includes your internal controls over compliance and internal controls over financial reporting. Just some required communications. You know, we have a great relationship with Jeff. No disagreements. Anything or any suggestion we provide to him, he takes it and he assesses it and considers whether it's reasonable to implement any changes or not. significant unusual transactions during the year. You did issue FIS 2021 series bonds that was used to refund or defease the 2014 debt. That was approximately $10.3 million. That is probably the most significant financial transaction that occurred during the year. That's included in the notes of the financial statements. You don't need to read that. You simply need to note that you issued new debt, you got a lower rate on that, and repaid some other debt. In addition to that, there was about $6.7 million of federal funding that's tied to the CARES funds. Those programs, in theory, are non-recurring. However, the American Recovery Plan Act dollars, which I'll talk about here in a minute, will provide additional federal funding to school districts for the next 3 to 4 years. No fraud or illegal acts. The only other thing I want to mention, really, Jeff, I just look at you, is there is this new leasing standard. It's really going to impact organizations that are on a full accrual basis. Again, the district's on a cash basis, but the new leasing standard could impact the footnote disclosures. I say this because it's due to be adopted next fiscal year. It's going to take time to work through that analysis, so it's guidance that, Jeff, you probably want to wait to see how DESE gives you thoughts on how to implement that. The last item here is quality of the internal controls over financial reporting. Good internal controls, nothing that we've noted, and no significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. So overall, good results. And then just forward-looking, like I mentioned, the American Recovery Plan Act dollars is going to provide federal funding that's, I believe, double of what the CARES dollars are, and that's going to run from 2022 to 2025. However, I believe school districts can use that money quicker than those 3 years. In addition to that, there's more federal funding potentially on the way. The infrastructure bill, which has passed, does have money for school districts, so they can use money towards electric vehicles, clean energy, things like that. The Build Back Better legislation, which I don't think anyone knows if that's going to pass or not, that would be significant to for Zumwalt because it has universal pre-K. So that is the gist of my presentation. I open this up for any questions that you guys might have.
Any questions? How deep do you go on the audit? And how long does it take you?
The audit takes us about, I would say, 300 hours, give or take, 300, 350. I mean, we really focus on testing cash disbursements, and we really focus on making sure that your footnote disclosures are complete and accurate, your cash balance is appropriately reconciled for each one of your 4 different funds, and then the lion's share of our work and the biggest part of the risk is really the federal funding. So we test 60 transactions for each one of those 3 programs that I mentioned. We test payroll, we test non-payroll, and if there's capital types of costs in there, we'll include that. But all of your federal funding is expended on non-payroll costs or payroll-related costs.
Any other questions? None? Take action.
Yes.
All right.
Two
Thank you
things,
very much.
approving the audit and the financial statement that needs to be published for the public.
Okay, take them separate.
Yes.
So I need a motion then to approve the audit as presented. Thank you very much. As presented. Ours, second. George, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Was that opposed?
No, I said aye. It's
Oh,
just a
okay.
delay.
Gotcha. And all in favor, we did. So the next one then is the posting of the financial summary that has been presented to us. That's, I need a motion to approve that. Moore, second, Powers. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
Andrew.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, at this time, we have several folks that want to step before the board and speak. Just a reminder that we ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes. And again, just a reminder, please limit your comments to avoid any personnel, student or current personnel in the school district. First person, and I apologize, I believe it's Rhiannon. Is that correct?
It's Renee, but it's okay.
It's Renee.
My mom didn't know how to spell it, it's fine.
Okay. What did you spell it?
That's the way she spelled it. Yeah, I know.
I don't feel so bad. All right, go ahead.
Thank you guys so much for hearing me out. I'm here today for my son, who is a student. I'm here as a mother and a teacher, because I'm a teacher in the district also. He is the one who asked me to do this, so I'm here to talk to you about the mental health in our school districts. Going into high school, my son was a very happy and exuberant young man. He was ready to learn, and he was so excited to get to see what these next 4 years would bring. When he graduated last year, he was self-harming and suicidal. He would go see our crisis counselor, and at times she would be able to regulate him and get him to go back to class. But more than 50% of the time, she was not there because of all of the duties that she has at our school. When she was there, though, she could help him. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, half of the people with mental health issues start by the age of 14 and they go undetected. Suicide is the second leading cause of death in 10 to 34-year-olds. And at our high school alone, as you know, we've had 3 suicides in the past 4 years. Something needs to change. I propose, that we have a mental health class for our kids, something that's going to teach them how to do these things to help themselves, and not just a crash course, because I know that we have that right now as part of our health education. It's just a 2-week, maybe, part of the health education. But this is something that needs to start in middle school, and we need to have a follow-up course in the high school. And it needs to be taught by someone with the right credentials and LPC and teacher certification. This class could cover the stigma around mental health, understanding mental health, detection of certain disorders and the help with early detection, how to find help, the importance of positive mental health, dealing with coping skills, how to regulate, how to have boundaries. This also class could also talk about bullying, diversity, acceptance, and inclusion. When learning all these skills, we can get ahead of these problems so that so many of these kids will not suffer. Another way that we can help is to have more crisis counselors throughout our district. I know that you guys are really working on trying to get that done. But from what I understand, Wentzville has at least 1 crisis counselor per building. Francis Howell has a coordinator for the district, consultants for times of crisis like what we just had at our high school, people to come in and do teacher training, and a crisis counselor at each building. If anything, maybe just get a personal assistant for the crisis counselor that we have so that she can focus her time on helping the kids that are there. She right now, I believe, has 1,950 students, whereas all of the other principals and counselors have the students divided up, and it's just too much. As a teacher in the district, I have mental health check-ins with my kids. I ask them how they're doing. And right now they're telling me they're stressed, they're overwhelmed. They have a lack of motivation, and lack of motivation is the main cause for when my students are not doing well. I am their biggest cheerleader, and I try to spur them on to do well in class. I know that COVID is one of the culprits of this, but I saw these problems before, and I just really feel like this would be something that would help them. I also feel like we need more teacher training, because whenever we had the incident that happened last week, I was left standing in class in front of a bunch of students, and I had no idea what to say or how to help them in that moment. And having a class or something for us that would help us to deal in a moment of crisis like that would really be beneficial. Like I said, I'm here today because my son pushed me to do this, gave me the thumbs up as I woke up today. And I hope that you consider it. Thank you.
Billy Sullivan.
Hi guys, thanks for all the time and allowing us to come up and speak. I was hoping to be able to focus on something besides COVID, because I know we have so many other issues to address. But once again, here we are talking about our, well, I have to say least favorite subject. I will give you all some credit as there have been positive things happen lately with going mask optional and changing the quarantine guidelines, but we're still looking at discrimination against those kids whose parents have researched and made, in my opinion, the correct choice of not vaccinating their kids with an experimental jab. That brings up the main thing I want to talk about tonight, and that's the COVID-19 vaccine toolkit for Missouri. If you haven't seen it, I did email everybody a copy of it. Since the FDA advisors voted 17 to nothing, I know it just shocks me, in favor of vaccinating kids 5 and up, and the FDA board voted 14 to nothing. And yes, you did hear that correct, 17 to nothing and 14 to nothing. I've been at these meetings throughout the summer and the fall, and it doesn't seem like a vote gets swayed by maybe 1 or 2 votes. So I'm just really found it shocking that scientists and doctors can vote like that without 1 dissent. I mean, not 1 person voted against it. It just shocked me. But since that vote, there's been all kinds of vaccination events that have been popping up all over. A few of them are planned at the St. Charles County Libraries this week. This past week in Maryland, a child was vaccinated by mistake because the school mistook her with someone that had consent to vaccinate. Looking at this toolkit and what it proposes, it's 8 pages. It seems to me that they are trying to find ways to get the kids vaccinated and hope no one knows. I'm lucky because my son is a senior and knows to text or call if they're vaccinating at the school. And my daughter is now homeschooled because after all the flip-flopping and stuff that we've seen this past fall, we decided that she needed to be home with us. My family and I are safe from having decisions made for us, but there are thousands of parents and of grade school and middle-aged kids who might need your assistance when it comes down to it. And they're starting to try and mandate this experimental jab. I just ask that you assure us in some way that we won't have vaccination events at our schools, that we won't have mandated COVID vaccines for our schools, that when it comes down to it, that you guys will stand up for our kids and say no, and just make sure that Fort Zumwalt doesn't become a vaccine event. I thank you guys for your time. I thank you for all you do. I just ask that you truly look at that.
Mr. Dino?
Thank you, members of the Board of Education. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dinoff, County Public Advocate. And I want to bring some issues to your attention about some agenda items and some items that were voted on at the last meeting. If I look at the audit report, I see lacking or missing is the audit management letter for violations or improvements. And you can't tell me that on page 43 that our district is 100% perfect and that we don't have any mistakes or any room for improvement. So I really don't buy page 43. And in normal audits, I see a management financial letter, and I don't see that in this audit. Now, last month's board meeting, you increased the pay for certain custodians over pay of other support employees. I feel it's very unfair, discriminatory practice, and it was totally unprofessional. You have custodians who have worked for this district for decades upon decades, and they didn't get that pay raise, but you picked and chose who you wanted to give a $2 pay raise to. The selection process of a new superintendent and deputy superintendent, where was the community involved in this process? I did not hear the discussion at all in any board meetings, and I'm not a happy camper with the selection of the next superintendent. I asked that you move this board meeting to a venue that's large enough to accommodate the amount of people. Again, we had an overflowing crowd, and again, we're in this small room. We need open free access of meetings. Testimony needs to be heard, slot at all special Board of Education meetings. Again, Mr. Emmons has not resigned from the board, but does not meet the residency requirements to be a Board of Education member. And finally, participation and investment. The Missouri Capital Assessment Advantage Treasury. How safe is this entity? What is the return on investment? Can we do better than the rates that they show on their webpage? And are the investments protected and are they safe? And the final issue is taking on new clubs. We talked about this in past board meetings. Can the district financially afford to take on new club memberships and pay for either coaches or advisors to these new clubs? Those are my comments, Mr. President. Thank you.
Heather Mudd. Heather Mudd.
Good evening. I'm here to tell you tonight about some people that I know. T is 13 years old. He is transgender. That doesn't have anything to do with his sexual intercourse. He hasn't had sex and isn't even thinking about that in that way. He was born a girl but always felt like he was supposed to be a boy. He finally had the courage to tell his parents about these feelings this year, and they supported him beginning to live as a boy. He dresses and lives as a boy even though he's spit on in the hallways at school and called names. He's even thought about beating someone up because another kid in his school who's gay beat someone up, and when they came back from out of school suspension, they've been left alone ever since. He actually thinks that being ostracized might be better than being bullied. Kelly's 37. She grew up in a small town. She always felt different and felt an attraction to girls, but never told anyone about it or did anything about it until college because she was afraid of being an outcast. She has experienced depression, negative thoughts about herself, and all while trying to blend in. Patrick is 16. He began to live as a boy in middle school because he finally had the courage to tell his parents about how he'd been feeling and that he never felt like he fit in. And although he has lots of female friends, he never really felt like he was a girl. He isn't gay, actually hasn't been involved with anyone in that way at all. He just wants to feel like he can be himself without being attacked. Now let me tell you about Heron. Heron was a student of mine in high school debate. He had an amazing IQ, was early accepted to Harvard with a full scholarship, had a perfect SAT score, and impressed everyone who met him. But more than that, he had an amazing ability to empathize with everyone that he met. He did charity work and advocated that we all accept everyone for the benefit of everyone. On June 15th, 2019, Heron killed himself. Not because he was gay or transgender himself, but because he was tired of the intolerance of the world around him. And he felt like despite all of his efforts, he couldn't bear to see humans treat other humans in that way. Since Heron died, I felt that I had to take steps to try and improve the world we live in, to work for tolerance and acceptance, even celebration of our differences. I'm not going to tell you the statistics, although I hope you read them and I'll be happy to provide them to you. Rates of depression, suicide, suicidal ideations, low self-esteem, lower scholastic performance, they're all higher in LGBTQ youth. I'm here instead to ask the 7 of you, how can you possibly stand in opposition to a group whose goal is acceptance? How can you look yourselves in the mirror having done anything other than fully supporting a group whose sole mission is providing a place for children in our district to feel safe and accepted? This is not about sexual intercourse. This has zero to do with the Sex Act or any information about sex itself. This is about acceptance, inclusion, and a chance to be yourself regardless of how that feels. Not one of the LGBTQ youth that I know are looking for information or discussion about the Sex Act. And having worked with middle school and high school kids for more than 20 years, I can tell you that sexually explicit material is out there in middle school kids' lives, even if it's not from the school, especially not from the school. I'm asking you to endorse and vote for acceptance, for a club that allows kids to come as they are and feel like that's okay. Please help make this world a little better by saying that it's okay to be yourself, even if you aren't the same as everyone else.
Good evening, everyone. My My name is April Rivera. I am a mother of 2 sons in the Fort Zumwalt School District, and I came here to support the addition of the middle school Rainbow Club. As a lesbian myself, when I was in school, I had no openly gay teachers, leaders, or even television personalities. Ellen and Rosie were straight when I was young. Times have changed. I had zero interest in boys, but all of my female friends did. I just assumed that I hadn't met the right boy yet, and later that would come. I remember a few times that people would call me gay, but I had no idea what that was because the only time I ever saw gay people was on Jerry Springer. And I knew that I was not like that, and I am not like that. The media only ever represented the gay community as criminals and perverts. And I, myself, strongly disliked the LGBT community when I was young because I thought that that's what they were. I was very confused, and I was very alone in my confusion. Kids who don't have resources to work through their confusion will hurt themselves or kill themselves. Having a safe place with caring people to discuss my feelings about my sexuality and my confusion would have been as valuable to me as any class that I ever took in school. And I took lots of really good classes, but this would have been very, very helpful for me. It's more important now, because in the last 20 years, we've gone from no one being gay to tons of people, including adolescents, identifying as other than heterosexual. This rapid change has been confusing to me, and I'm sure it's been confusing to many of you. I personally know 6 children that are not mine that identify as other than heterosexual. These children need safe spaces with safe people to understand and accept themselves. So I'm here today to be the adult that I wish someone had been for me. Representation matters. Safe spaces matter. The LGBTQ community matters. Please allow these kids to have a safe space to get to understand themselves. Thank you.
Mike Durbin.
Good evening, board members, ladies and gentlemen in the audience. My name is Mike Durbin. I have 2 children at South Middle School, and I first want to start by thanking all the educators in the room for the job that you do. I really appreciate it, and I know it's very difficult. Unfortunately, parents like myself are waking up to seeing a growing trend of some educators pushing their own ideologies, political views, and agendas on our children. Whether it's called CRT, gaslighting, rewriting history, or pushing an agenda, it's wrong, and it is happening in our school district. I have 3 examples for you. 2019, Pheasant Point, Columbus Day, my son's teacher lectured the class on the evil acts, as she saw them, of Christopher Columbus. After the kids sat through a negative rant villainizing Christopher Columbus and attempting to rewrite history, they were then directed to write an opinion paper to be read in front of the class on whether or not they believe the holiday should still be celebrated. Every student said no. My son came home very upset. He had felt bullied and pressured into falling in line. 2020, Pheasant Point. My other son came home from school and told me he'd been repeatedly kicked on the bus by another student. The other student became violent when my son defended the president. He said, "I like Donald Trump. I think he's a good president." I was contacted by the principal the following day. Apparently, the other student had bruised their leg from kicking my son and lied to their parents and said that my son was the aggressor. I was shocked. My son was basically guilty until proven innocent. After the bus video footage was seen, my son was proven innocent and 100% truthful. To my knowledge, the other kid was never punished, and there were no apologies. It was obvious the principal was disappointed in the truth. And I was told the kids shouldn't be talking politics on the bus. Seriously, that was the takeaway. What if it would have been Hillary Clinton they were talking about? What do you think? Fast forward. Last month, South Middle School, Columbus Day again. My son's 6th grade social studies teacher asked the kids, "What day is it today?" Kids say, "Columbus Day." They're corrected. It's Indigenous Peoples Day. And she goes on to disparage Columbus with her own personal views and made a joke of a federal holiday. I voiced my concern to the principal, but despite having 22 witnesses in class, the principal simply took the teacher's word that it never happened. I'm here tonight just to ask that you help stop these practices in our school. We, the parents, we want our kids educated and not indoctrinated. Thank you very much. I appreciate you listening to me.
Becky Klopstein. At this point, the next two comments are regarding some books, and I would ask that you not read any.
I'm not,
excerpts.
I prepared this in my car, seriously. I just wanna make a couple statements. My name's Becky Klopstein. I have two students at North High, and it's been brought to our attention about these pornography books that are in the schools. They are in every school district in St. Charles County, not just this one. I belong to a group called SCC Parents Association. I'm sure you all know Lindy Williford. She's the president of the organization. And if something is not done to remove these books from all of the schools in St. Charles County, just as the parents pulled together and raised enough money to file a lawsuit against the health department about quarantining, we will raise enough money to file a lawsuit about these books. And if that means that Board of Educations have to be arrested for allowing these books by the mayor of each county, that's what we will do. Speaking of the banned books, there is a teacher in Fort Zumwalt School District. She was an elementary school teacher. I've worked with this person before. She is a high school teacher now, a high school librarian, and she sponsors Banned Book Week. And she lets the kids read the books that are banned. And I don't approve of that. I'm sure you guys don't approve of that. I don't even know if you know of it. I have pictures on my phone. I will email them to you after the meeting. Someone sent them to me, and I just couldn't believe what I was seeing, that she supports this. It's awful. Speaking of the books again, who is in charge of okaying the books? Is it you guys? Do the librarians have free reign of whatever they bring into their libraries? That's what we want to know. Find out who that person is, and it's not okay. And I do understand that it's easier to stop new books from coming in than it is to get the books out, but you have to get these books out. They are disgusting. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the quarantine that the health department has adjusted. Well, I got on the DESE website, and it says, do schools have the authority to quarantine? No, only the local health department has the authority to quarantine. Then it says, do the local health departments have the authority to require the school nurse or school district to do contact tracing within the school district? This is their own webpage. It says school nurses do have a role in assisting in contact tracing and are expected to do so. However, it is not within the authority of the local health department to require the school nurse or school districts to do contact tracing in a school district. That's their own webpage. So if they're lifting their quarantine rules a little bit and they're putting it on you guys, they don't have the authority to do that on DESE's own education webpage. So you guys can end quarantining of healthy students. You just have to do it. Another thing that was brought to my attention, I'm going to kind of piggyback off what this guy was talking about. 3 years ago, my daughter was in a class, in an ELA class at this school right here. And she had a teacher, and she took pictures of it and sent it to me, who on the whiteboard wrote a timeline, and on this end she wrote Nazis, and she labeled that where the Republicans are. And I have pictures of that too I can send you. I haven't told anybody about that. I've held on to that because I didn't even know what to do with it, but now it's absolutely ridiculous. My son was in 5th grade a few years back at one of our elementary schools, and he told his teacher, I'm not going to name any names, so don't worry, but he told his teacher, who bantered back and forth with him about Donald Trump. He said, Mr. So-and-so, as an educator of children, you should probably only teach both sides of the story and not just your opinion. And I worked at that school when he told that teacher that, and that teacher came up to me and he said, you know what? He's absolutely right. I have been only teaching one side. Well, that's everywhere. That's all schools have this problem.
Okay, I'm sorry, but your time's up.
Okay. One last thing. Someone sent me a picture about a teacher at the school also who put on social media about teaching systemic injustices to her 8th graders.
So please send that information to us. and
I will.
we'll look into it.
Thank you.
Carol Pitzer. And I will, once again, say if you're planning to read any excerpts of those books, I would ask that you not do that.
So why, if the kids can read it, why can't we as adults ask the minors to leave the room and let the parents and other people know what's in the books in the school library?
Well,
I mean, I could say, not read that word, I could just refer to it by the first letter or something, would that work?
Well, so the issue is that you're not the first person to bring this to us, so that we are aware of it. We have a policy in place, and we're working through the policy to remove those books. Those books have to go through a review process, and it's a policy that the district has had for a long time. As far as those books making it to the shelves, I have no idea when they were on the shelves, how long ago, but it has become apparent to us, and now that we know about it, we're removing them. So for you to stand there and read excerpts of the book, I think would just be appalling to the rest of us because it's not necessary. We know they're there. We know what the books say, and that's my point. I don't know, I know that.
How long does it take to get these books removed while our kids are reading them in
They're not,
the meantime?
how many, those books have been pulled anyway, haven't they, as far as for the review?
Some of them are still digital.
There's a process, a board policy, that if you make a formal complaint, you can file that, and we'll follow through in the policy as far as removing any books. So that's what I would do, is just get that information to us, what you're complaining about, and we'll start the process.
Because there was a book that was brought to us last month that I issued a complaint on. So I know that there may have been another book or two that will come up. So whatever the titles are, we just go through the process, we can make sure we take care of it. Because we're not gonna know every book in every library. There is someone who has to do that, and if somebody dropped the ball.
Don't you have
on
enough
it,
curriculum readers, or
if there's somebody
they
that
have to
dropped
be
the ball.
approved, right?
If somebody has dropped the ball, we need to make sure that it gets picked up. Yes, there's somebody who's responsible for taking care of that. For whatever reason, somehow it didn't make it that way. There's an American Library Association that submits lists of books, and we need to, none of us approved or disapproved of any of the books that are in the library. Somebody was responsible for that. Because it didn't happen, we need to fix that process. So that's my answer to you. But I know what you're wanting to say. I know you're frustrated as the rest of us are.
Mad.
And mad as the rest of us are. We just don't, personally, I don't think it's necessary to, you can talk to us about the books. All I'm asking is you
don't
please
read the
don't
excerpts.
read the excerpts.
The good parts. Okay.
Saturday time.
So I want to express my disgust with one of the several books that I know of that are available to my grandchildren and the students of Fort Zumwalt School District in the Fort Zumwalt Library. The book Lawn Boy by Jonathan Evision is a book that has explicit pedophilia content between a grown man and a boy. This is not language, well, we kind of said all this, so lots of excerpts here I'm not going to be able to read. I'm just not okay with my grandchildren having access to pedophilia or porn at school, and this is the type of thing that my grandchildren's parents try to shield their children from. So I appreciate anything you could do. Children could be taken to church on Sunday and exposed to this filth the next day at school. So I just don't understand how it could get into the school. And I don't think this is what you would want for your children. If you have any children, I don't know. As long as it's in their library, I'm not going to be able to sleep well at night. There's a movement to feminize boys and make our children question their gender as young as elementary school. And this is not the education that parents think should be taught in our schools. Once they see or hear these type of things, it cannot be taken back.
It robs them of their innocence. So does your sex ed curriculum. They are being taught sex ed from a book that is LGBTQ approved. That I hope that both of these books will be removed immediately and bring back the old textbooks that do not include the revisionist teachings. It's not just in the history books, it's in all the books. And they're teaching our children lies so that they will eventually hate America. And so I think it's time for the parents to take action, to get mad, to take action. I appreciate anything that you said you were going in the process of doing. Absolutely.
And Ms. Bitzer, if you would, see Dr. Myers either after the meeting or contact him during the day here at the board office and give him those, you can give him the titles that you're concerned about, and he can give you the information and the policy as to what the next steps could be for you.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I need a motion to accept the consent agenda that you have before you along with the addendums. Powers, second please. Moore, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Motion carries.
Mike, can you repeat that? I didn't hear you. Sorry.
It was a motion to approve the consent agenda by Powers, second by Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Financial reports, Mr. Orr.
President of the board and members, they have in your packet financial statement, the investment schedule, revenue, expenditure, all the financial reports. Direct your attention to the financial summary, which you guys have had now since last Thursday. I'm not going to read through it. I'm just going to summarize it. Our monthly fund balances for October totaled $31,920,054.30. If you compare that to last October, which was $27.5 million, balances have improved slightly. Revenues for the month totaled $10,108,865.07 as shown on the revenue report. That is also a slight increase. We were at $9.8 million for our revenue receipts last October. So we're right in the same ballpark of where we'd expect to be for revenue receipts. You see the variances listed there. Expenses for the month of October totaled $19,874,430.20 as shown on the expenditure report. And to compare, last October, our expenses were $19.6 million, so we are right there in the same ballpark as where we'd expect to be, with some slight increases, mainly in salaries in area for staffing changes and raises that we're giving the staff. So anyway, I don't know if anybody has any questions about that, but I think everything's in line with where we'd expect to be for this time of year and for the month.
Any questions for Mr. Orr? None. I need a motion to approve the financial report as stated. Emmons, second. Powers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Old business. Ms. Kester, you got some bond issue money you spent. How'd your projects go?
They went really well this summer. We were busy. I've got a little presentation to kind of give you an idea of what we accomplished this summer. So we were in a few schools this summer. We started out, the biggest project we had was the PDTC Center. That building has a total square footage of 24,655. It's got 26 offices for both curriculum and technology. It's got a large conference room that will hold up to 350 people. It also divides into 3 smaller spaces, which gives us a lot of flexibility. And I know Jen and her department have been using it a lot. It has 6 smaller conference rooms in that building. And we have a very large parking lot, which has about 344 parking spaces. We did get the occupancy in late September, and that project cost was about $7.7 million, all said and done. What I've got to show you tonight is this is the architectural rendering that Ittner proposed when we started this project, and then this is the actual building. So I think we finished looking just like the rendering did. This is just some more of the exterior. We've got our compass sign on the front. This is the main entrance and lobby. I don't know how many of you have been in it yet, but it's very impressive with the wood wall, the seating that's lighted, and then the seating at the reception area. This is some of the interior conference rooms that we have. The one on the left is a portion of the large conference room, and then the other ones are some of the smaller ones. Then we have our office spaces. We have a lot of windows so they can see out. I think the staff really likes it because they can see what's going on. They don't feel like they're in just a little room. And then we have collaboration workspaces for them, which works out really nice. I see Jen's staff using those a lot as well. And then auxiliary spaces, just some workrooms, and then or some kitchen areas, and and then a break room area if they do have a conference that people can actually sit in and eat. Then interior renovations, we do this every summer. This year we focused on Jail Mud, Forest Park, and Progress South. We spent about $160,700. At Jail Mud, we probably had the most work. We did some corridors, painted some corridors, restrooms. We did some flooring and some new ceiling tile. We also restained all of the wood doors on the inside. Here's a before picture of their library. I didn't get it before they took out, our maintenance got really fast and took out all the shelving, so I missed that. But then the after pictures, they got new carpet. It looks really bright and cheery, and they seem to really like it. The hallways, the corridors, this is a before picture. Then we went back with some bright primary colors. I think Mrs. Mountain is very happy with those. Some more corridors before, and again after. Just looks really bright. We also put new ceiling tile in the hallways, which really brightened it up. They were old and kind of warping and sagging. At Forest Park Elementary, we did some work in the library. We included the replacement of the flooring, which was original and was installed in 1999, so it was in desperate need to be replaced. This is before and then after, so it really cleaned it up, and hopefully we'll get to do some painting there in the near future. Progress South Elementary, we renovated the north, south, and east pods in the library. Their flooring in the center of the pods was replaced, and then the library carpet was replaced. Progress South pods are made up of an interior pod, and we had a VCT corridor and then carpet on either side, and it was just looking really stained and just dingy looking. So what we did is we brightened it up. We took out a lot of the carpet. But we kept a large 12 by 20 area of carpet so they could have the kids sit down and collaborate there. But yet we gave more VCT. It makes it easier to clean, and it just really brightened the spaces up. We also, in these pods, we gave each pod a color. So the north pod is a blue. Then the southeast pod is a teal color. And then the south pod is yellow. So it kind of identifies the pods by color as well as direction for the kiddos. And then the library, before, we just did some carpet replacement here. And then after, we added the VCT around the curriculum area to help with traffic. And basically all this is coming out of our bond money, so we really appreciate our patrons voting on that and giving us the opportunity to make these improvements. Any questions?
Yeah, it looks great. Any questions for Lisa?
It's always fun.
None? Progress South looks a lot different than when I went. All right.
PD building would fit a board meeting.
Pardon me?
So I wonder if that PD building would fit a board meeting to show off a little bit.
No, it might.
Yeah, it would.
I've asked JB, he said that we need to get him a few extra microphones first. You know, the tech guy's always asking for stuff.
And it always costs money.
Thanks, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Dr. DeBray, you've got 2022 bond issue projects for you.
Yeah, we had 4 bond issues in our long-range plan that was established in 2012. The last one was supposed to be last April, but we had a tax levy that we presented in place of a bond issue. So this year, we really can't miss again. We need to have money available to keep up with this big school district. We have 2.7 million square feet of floor space, 31 buildings, all kinds of roof, heating, ventilating, air conditioning. So we need to get back on track. We also have some big projects that we need to bring to your attention. So this has morphed a little bit. There's more projects and more money in this last bond issue than we originally proposed. But, you know, as 10 years go on, there are additional things that need to happen. So we talked about this at a work session here a couple of months ago. This bond issue project list has been refined. The budgets have been refined a little bit and the projects have been fleshed out. So what I wanted to do is just have Lisa review those. She and I work pretty closely on putting bond issues together and then developing which projects are going to be done in what order. So she's gone through this with us earlier today. And I'd like her just to walk through it just like you did today. And we'll see if any of the board members have any questions after we get through it. The recommendation won't come until December. So there's certainly time to decide how we want to proceed. Okay,
Thank you, Dr.
Lisa,
Ray.
if you'll hit it.
Sure. This is what we're proposing for the future bond projects. We've got two categories. Did I hit the wrong? There it is. Okay. Major building renovation projects. So we've got two categories. This is the first one. What we're looking at is at North High, we want to do some new construction there. That's to include approximately 3,000 square foot cafeteria commons addition and a 9,000 square foot multi-purpose room addition. We got $4 million set aside for that. North Middle School, we were looking at doing a 3-story building addition to include the demo of the existing 2-story wing and then reconstruct approximately a 43,000 square foot 3-story building with an elevator. That school currently doesn't have an elevator. Transportation, we're looking at possibly purchasing new property and the construction of a new building to include approximately 13 acres of property, 20,000 square foot building, which would have 8 service bays, and then a large parking lot that could accommodate about 270 parking spaces and 200 bus parking spaces. We kind of based this on what Wentzville did, so we kind of took what they did to kind of give us an idea of what we might need.
And right now, we only have 3 service bays, so the most we can get in are 2 or 3 buses. So this would help Jeff Schwecker out quite a bit.
Okay. And we're on 2 lots too, so this would bring it all together. Then the next large project would be storm shelters. We want to continue with those. We've kind of put in there to provide construction of storm shelters at 15 of the remaining elementary schools. So we've set aside $18 million for that. Mike Clemens Center, they need a classroom addition. So we're looking at doing about another 12 to 15,000 square foot addition. That's about the same size as their current classroom area that they have now at that building. And then some other major projects is a new elementary school site. Dr. Bray says we probably need to look at purchasing some land for a possible new elementary school. We need about 15 acres for a new school, or if we would find 30 acres, we could maybe accommodate the school and the transportation building. Just kind of throwing that out there. Then there's a district swimming pool. We would be looking at one building to include a large pool and a diving well with ample parking. We have a possible location maybe on the North High campus, or we may need to purchase a site. Just kind of still feeling that out.
Then one thing I would add to that is right now we're spending about $100,000 a year to rent the Recplex, and the Recplex has gotten so many other organizations in there that they've pretty much skinnied us down to about 1 lane that our teams can practice in. So it would just make sense to use that money rather than renting it, to spend the money on reducing the principal and interest on a bond issue if we were able to include it in this bond issue.
So yeah, so swimming pool would be great, and it would be about an 8. I think we were looking at maybe an 8 lane, something like that. So it would give them a lot more capacity to have practices. And then the athletic facility improvements, we need to replace the remaining 3 high schools football field turfs. That's north, south, and west. They're going on, I think we just finished 11th or 12th year on those fields, so they're getting up in age. We'd like to do the tennis court replacement at East and West High. We'd like to do those post-tension concrete tennis courts. They're needing some constant repairs because of the asphalt cracking. Track replacements at North High and South High. Those tracks are in need of some major work. And then we need some bleacher replacements at North High, South High, North Middle, and South Middle on the interior in the gyms. So we're looking at doing those. Then we have maintenance and upgrade projects. This is just the day-to-day stuff that we just need to keep up with, and some other items. Fine arts enhancements, we'd like to do some district-wide improvements and to purchase some and replace some of the more expensive instruments that the district buys. And also do some auditorium upgrades to include possible replacing of seating, lighting, sound system, in all of the auditoriums. Technology improvements, JB has identified several things that we kind of need to keep on our list of things to do. One is a power generator for the data center. I think he said we have like 20 minutes if power goes out, and so we need to get something for that. Data center server refresh, audio and video refresh for all the classrooms, virtual desktop for students, mobile video room kits. So kind of putting aside some money to keep building our technology.
You may have to add microphones for the.
Microphones, I'll add that to the list. HVAC improvements. We've got quite a bit set aside for this. This is to do some major HVAC replacements for equipment that was installed prior to 2000. We have about probably 40% of our equipment that is older than 2000. So we have some very aging equipment. We really need to put some money in that. And I've listed all the schools that have some that we need to do some repairs at and some replacements. And then roofing improvements at all the schools. We're looking at any warranties that are going to expire prior to 2020. And then we would like to try to look at those schools and start replacing some of those older roofs and just keeping up and maintaining them. Painting improvement projects, we want to keep moving in that direction. We've done a lot. So I would like to start, continue with painting in walls, doors and frames, lockers in necessary areas in the schools. And I've kind of listed some of the schools that we would anticipate doing with this next bond money. Flooring, interior doors and ceiling improvements. This is interior renovation work at multiple buildings to include the following. The first one is major interior renovations at North High School. This would include replacement of doors, flooring, ceiling tile, etc. We did a large project like this at South High several years ago in 2010, 11, and 12. And we really need to do something like this at North High. Their doors and everything's looking very aged. Flooring replacements at North Middle, West Middle, and Lewis and Clark, and several other schools. We still have some asbestos flooring. We also have some floors that are uneven, so we need to really do some improvements there. We have some floor settlement repairs needed at West High and Twin Chimneys Elementary, and we'd like to do some library renovations at East High School as well. Then we also have a section of windows and exterior improvements. We have some exterior repairs at various buildings. We need to do some window replacements or repairs at about 4 or 5 schools. We have exterior wall panel replacement at West Middle. Some of our exterior wall panels are deteriorating. We need to address that. And then we'd like to replace some of the exterior monument signs at Mid Rivers, Pheasant Point, and Rock Creek. Those were original to those schools. So we're looking at getting them an upgrade. And I think the last thing we have is our parking lot improvement projects. We'd like to keep moving forward with replacing the asphalt with the concrete overlays. They just hold up much better than the asphalt, less maintenance down the road. So all in all, summary, major building renovation projects is about $67,500,000 and maintenance and upgrade projects is $57,500,000 for a total bond of $125 million. I'm not used to those big of numbers. 125 million.
Okay, so to do it all, it's no tax increase bond issue. Our assessed valuation is such that we have ample bonding capacity to go for that whole thing. And between now and the next board meeting, we will have some of the public in to view the projects and give us any advice that they might like to do, much like we did with the ESSERS 3 money. We brought in a public component to make suggestions to us. So no recommendation, no decisions for you tonight, but we will bring something back to you in December and see. In the meantime, if you have any suggestions or anything, please let me know and we can incorporate that into the bond issue. You have any questions? Yep.
When was the last bond issue?
2018.
What was that amount?
$35 million.
Yeah, if approved, how much capacity do we have left?
Bonding capacity? Our bonding capacity is probably 350 million. Something like that. It's 15% of your assessed valuation minus any debt. And I believe we're over 300 million at this point, so we would be, have ample remaining.
So 50%, you assume?
Probably close to that. Yeah, we can calculate it for you. Anybody else? Okay, that's fine.
Moving on. New business. Dr. Gray.
All right, first item under new business, Paul Myers has some policy development that he wanted to bring to your attention. Paul?
Thank you, Dr. Bray, members of the board. Very small packet. This session, what's happening is we're getting some MSBA updates, so this is not typical where we have 2 meetings in a row like this. The ones that you have, though, relate to board filing requirements that there was a legal change, so we're updating those to get current. And then alongside of those, doing a couple of other updates as well. So nothing substantial, but things that due to them being legal matters, I need your approval to adopt those changes. And I'm happy to answer any questions about the policy updates.
Any questions for Dr. Myers? If not, I need a motion to approve the policy update that's been presented. Ours, second. Or, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Thank you.
Next item, extracurricular task force. Henry chairs that group and has recommendations. Come back, Henry.
Thank you, Dr. Bray. Good evening, members of the board. You have a memo from me in your packet which outlines recommendations from the extra duty task force. The organization met in September and heard from sponsors who are recommending new clubs or adjustments to existing clubs and activities, and consistent with our process. The task force listened to those requests and brought forth recommendations to the Board of Education for consideration. A couple of items that are outlined in your memo that I'll just touch upon briefly, and then happy to answer any questions you might have. One, renaming of the existing high school Gay Straight Alliance to Gender Sexuality Alliance, which is just kind of in line with the national organization name change. 2, addition of a middle school Gender Sexuality Alliance club with the description laid out in the memo. And number 3, the addition of a middle school gaming club, again with description laid out. And those point values are articulated, and presently that monetary value should sufficient interest and participation be warranted at all 4 of those high schools. That potential expenditure is outlined there at $556 per middle school, pending sufficient interest and participation for the middle school GSA, and $417 per middle school for gaming club, pending sufficient interest and participation as well. At this time, I'd like to open it up for any questions the board might have regarding this recommendation. No questions.
I have a question.
Yep.
We had gone, I guess, a couple months ago and asked, I guess there was a report that was even created as far as the number of extracurricular clubs. Has there been any activity by the extracurricular task force to pare those down, to look at them, give us some suggestions on what we can do? I think we just continue to add, and they keep running. We just keep running rampant with creating these things, and we don't know as a board how viable these clubs are. What are we doing with them? We're spending money, we don't know what we're getting.
Yeah, sure. The clubs only exist when there is sufficient participation. So we do have a long list of clubs and activities, but they don't all exist. And if they do exist, they don't all exist in every school. So that while there is a placeholder identified, the board's approved that if participation allows for such. If the club is no longer of interest to kids, then it kind of takes care of itself in that regard. As far as a formal process to go to re-examine all of our existing clubs and activities, that we have not formally undertaken that. And I know last time we had that discussion, there were also some comments, I believe, to also consider maybe adding some additional things too. So, I think I'd be happy to go through that exercise and lead a group with that, with the board's direction.
Henry, do you have support groups within the schools that are outside of the club designation?
I would say we do, yes.
So just to kind of break it here, the GSA is a very serious topic. It's extremely important to some of our students. It seems odd that it would be dropped into the same kind of concept of a gaming club, right? Because I consider it to be much more support driven. I would imagine discussions within it reach or can get into areas that are exceptionally serious. And so I start to wonder a few different things. One of them is taking a club sponsor, staff member, providing them training once every semester. Does that give them the tools that they need to address the potential topics that might come up in that environment? We heard tonight about topics that included things like self-harm and suicide and depression. I just wonder if that's enough support for that staff member. Middle school as well is an interesting time for development. We have children who, most of our children, I think, enter middle school at 11 years old. And they can leave middle school as old as 14 on average. And that's a lot of development, a very serious development that occurs. And so I start to wonder too, do support groups, if treated like clubs, right? And without a better system of kind of how you align to students, doesn't potentially create a scenario where we're not being age appropriate in some of the discussion, not really the discussion, but really how we bring kids into that. So those are some of the concerns that I have. And then if you look at it from a support perspective, the idea that we have staff that would be then financially incentivized to promote as opposed to financially incentivized to support is something that comes up with concern. I think those are my three areas of concern. I'm not questioning the importance of inclusion and meeting our kids where they are and helping them understand who they are and not be impacted. I am a little concerned about those few items though. Was any of that brought up or discussed during the task force?
So certainly the topic of providing some support for the adults was, and that's why the provision for some at least twice a year meetings was woven into this particular club recognition, and the sponsors acknowledged that would be very welcome to have an opportunity to talk with their colleagues across the district, but also have some additional level of support available to them.
Do they feel it was enough?
We didn't ask that specific question. I think I certainly got the impression that they wouldn't be opposed to more. So I think that's something that we can certainly consider increasing. I don't know that there is such a thing as too much support.
I'm not trying to take it over the stage, but was there any discussion around the types of topics that I believe would be pretty different for 13 or 14-year-old getting ready to enter high school and an 11-year-old just coming out of elementary school? I mean, mixing those two groups into, again, one grouping, one club presents some concerns for me. And I have an 11-year-old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. At the middle school level, was in this task force was clarified that, of course, these are extra duty positions that take place outside of school, and parents Also, sign a permission form for their children to participate in a specific club or activity, whatever that is. We did not specifically get into that age range, that there would be 11-year-olds to 14-year-olds and potentially, and of course those, they may be very different, in a different place developmentally, emotionally, lots of problems. So we didn't look at differentiating that out, or I guess splitting that out or limiting that to certain age ranges.
How much insight then would we give parents at those different ages? I mean, it's one thing to sign permission, again, for the gaming club.
Insight as to
types of discussion, what occurs, the support that will be there. Like, I have to that level, the support side. I still have a concern with the idea that I'd like to have guidance counselors in something like this. I'd like to take this, I'm not saying we're not, but it's just my concern is you group it up with, hey, this is another club. I think you potentially run the risk of missing some of the support those students need. Especially then when you say it's a club for all of middle school, which means, again, you're hitting some pretty drastic differences in sexual maturity, mental maturity across the board. I don't know if maybe I'm alone in this or anybody else feels that way.
I agree with you. I don't think any of us are against and know that we have a need for this, but in my mind, this isn't a club. This is a support group that we have people who, and nothing against teachers, they obviously support kids constantly every day. But counselors go through so much to be able to work with kids in these situations and of what they talked about, of cutting and different feelings they're having and supporting them in ways that they continually study and improve on to do, right? So they seem way more qualified, and I'd rather take any money that we're gonna spend on that to give more support to a counselor or another counselor that can come in and help with that. Obviously a lot more money to do that, but that we have more supports in place for that, for our counselors to work with the students and have groups that they can look at it, and maybe they can, and knowing the students, they can say, hey, you guys would be really good to have together in a group and talk and work together, and this age would be good, and this kind of subject matter, and I'm gonna put this group together to work with that, versus having a club where everybody's just in there and it's a club instead of, really working groups that they can really help and, focus on the areas they really need to. So to me, our district has more of a need to that, and I would rather have our money go towards that and giving them the right supports and provide that safety and, that for them.
And I'll just point out that we do have that as we already have Gay Straight now, which would become Gender Sexuality Alliance at the high school level, operating in a similar capacity. And so the recommendation that was brought forth was to bring this down to the high school.
I think what I'm hearing is that at the high school level is one thing, but when you do bring it down to the middle school, that there needs to be more meat to the support and the counseling aspect than it is the club aspect. That's what I'm hearing from the board.
No problem with a counselor being in charge of it, but if we don't allow these kids a safe space, I think we're just sending the wrong message.
I don't know. Can anybody hear me?
Just how we're doing it, how we're providing the safe space. I guess that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yes, we need to have a safe space, but it's how that's being provided that we need to really be looking at so that they're getting what they actually need.
Yeah, can you all hear me? Everybody hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can't see you.
Okay, well, I don't know what just happened. It was working a second ago, it just went away. Well, I'll just go ahead and say what I was getting ready to say. Here we go. So as far as whether it's a club or a support group or whatever title it is, I don't know, which one's the correct way to go, but I do, agree with Thomas about whether the I guess for me there's you have, something like that is very delicate because there's a lot more mental turmoil that comes along with that subject matter. Like the young lady said earlier who was speaking, it's not about a sexual act. It's a lot of mental turmoil that goes on with that. And I think that having a counselor or somebody who's professionally trained beyond a class or two definitely vital to the outcome of this thing being the way we want it to be. Because there are times, and other gentlemen earlier spoke on it, when, as human beings, we're sometimes subconsciously can push our own opinions across, the table when we're discussing things. And, I think guidance counselors have more training on how not to do that versus a teacher, and nothing against teachers at all. I think that's just their specialty in remaining neutral on subject matters when they come about. And I think that it is very vital that we have people who are very, very much trained and very familiar with that topic. So I say all that to say, I definitely think we cautious as to who we have leading that, a support group or extracurricular, whichever term is, deemed appropriate at the end of this. I think it's very, I think we need to be very cautious who we have running those groups and, sponsoring those groups as well as, the people involved as well. This is something that I've been a proponent of, but I definitely want it to be done right. Um, so I definitely agree with Thomas and Erica on that, 100%. And I think we just have to be cautious about age appropriate things as well.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any other comments on this? Greg, do you have any thoughts? Are you good?
I'd rather seen, frankly, the recommendation for 3 different groups. One that says, this is how you progress through that. I'm not opposed to what Tommy's saying as far as students need a safe space, but I think a safe space for an 11-year-old is different than one for a 13 or 14-year-old. I see it is. If we're going to address this, I would like to split this out and address this separately. All of these.
Oh, yeah, they will be.
I do have a couple questions on the gaming club as well. Let's speak to that.
Well, first of all, let's take item 1 regarding the renaming of the existing high school, Gay Straight Alliance to Gender Sexuality Alliance, mirroring a change that was made at the national level. Let's take a motion, a second, and then we'll have discussion and vote. So I need a motion to approve this recommendation from the extracurricular task force. George, second.
I'll second for discussion.
Evans, discussion. Discussion regarding renaming the group. Any discussion? Any questions? Comments?
So this is a question for our education. What does this signify? What's accomplished? What was the intention at the national level?
I don't know that I can accurately, I guess, for fear of misspeaking what the intent was at the national level. I can just relay what the sponsor, told us when they presented that. And the sponsors felt like it more accurately describes the group in that the Gay Straight Alliance as it is more limiting, in that the groups that they work with are not either just gay or straight, but maybe represented by a number of other titles, if you will. So it felt like, as the way it was presented to the extra duty task force, was that that was the change that was made at the national level to be more inclusive of the students that the organization typically represents, and that gay, straight is viewed as more limiting.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. You didn't say either.
I know, because you moved when I was here, you said aye.
Oh, so you're a no?
No, I'm aye.
Okay.
Yes.
Are you an aye? Okay, so motion carries. Oh, Gabriel, can you hear us?
Gabriel stepped away.
His end dropped off. He's having a connection issue on his end.
He said he had a call.
He had a call.
He sent it to everybody.
Okay. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, item 2.
Mike, I'd like to make a motion on this, and I want to get the wording right.
Get ready. Tammy.
So, predicate this by saying this is not to kill the topic. Rather, I'd like to make a motion that we do follow up with those detailed discussions that we've been having. I'd like to actually ask the task force to meet again to talk through those items and re-present to us in the December board meeting. I'd be happy to sit on that as well.
Some Dr. Smith you could maybe sit on too. Sorry to throw you into that, but I don't know if you'd be the person, or maybe Jeremy, you need to be someone of the admin level that can kind of help guide the discussions through this. I don't know. Either one of you, I don't care. I'm just throwing. Maybe, well, you too, right? You're there or not?
Well, so yeah, I
you're
definitely
there.
facilitate the process.
Oh.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just didn't want the extracurricular task force running the meeting. You know what I'm saying? So, okay, never mind.
Would it be inappropriate to have any parents involved in that as well?
So, I mean, our task force as it is defined by policy, is limited to, the high school activity coordinators.
It's in the negotiations agreement with our FZSD teachers. So I don't know if you could do that, but you could certainly have a temporary committee that could review that.
You want to change the word from extracurricular task force and make it a temporary committee, which would include the extracurricular task force and parents.
Yes.
And counselors. A certain number of, to be determined by the ATC. Okay? Was that you want to clean up your, Tom?
So let me see if I can redo this without stumbling through it. Mike, I'd like to make a motion that we send this back to special committee incorporated with the extracurricular task force, counselors, parents, both within and outside the LGBTQ community, with the total number to be determined for representation at the December board meeting.
Can it be done that quick?
I mean,
or does it need to be January? I mean, you got holidays in there too.
Right.
I'm just trying to be
I think,
reasonable.
I guess it depends upon the scope of this group that we would be trying to coordinate schedules.
Why don't you
How about
say
no later than January?
Yeah, I was gonna say, let's do something like that, then no later than January at the board meeting, so that you've got time in case. I want to, again, I think Gabriel said it, we want to do it right. Not rush it.
Anything we can do, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Give a second.
Second, I'll second. Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
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 I forgot that was your motion. That we were having a discussion. Okay. Motion carries to continue to review this. All right, item 3 is the gaming club. So, motion to approve the recommendation as presented. Motion second, then discuss. Second.
I'll second for discussion.
Thank you.
So, okay, so this gets into the idea from a club perspective. And listen, $417 per middle school is not gonna bankrupt the district, right? So I don't think it's a money side, at least for me. But what is the goal of some of these clubs? Because we do have a lot of clubs that seem, they they do maybe a lesser job of driving academic excellence into our district. I'm just trying to get a better sense of when we look at these clubs, what are we trying to base?
So I'll just speak to that maybe generally and not specific to the gaming club, but maybe my explanation, or maybe what I say can be extrapolated out to clubs in general. You know, I think generally speaking, the goal is to help kids feel connected to their school. We know that when kids feel connected to their school, sometimes they may not ordinarily. Sometimes there's one thing that connects kids to their school. It may be the gaming club, it may be something else. But when we know kids have a positive connection to their school, they're going to do better in school. There's a wealth of research out there that says that involvement in extra pay or extracurricular, get it right, extracurricular activities, kids do better in school. They're more likely to attend school, they're more likely to get higher grades. This follows them, this research follows them through high school. The same thing holds true. They're more likely to do well in school, have higher attendance in school, they're more likely to go on to college, do better in college, and go on and on. There's well-established research that supports that. So I think, you know, from a purpose perspective, that's an underlying purpose of all of our extra duty club and all of our extracurricular activities, be that whatever they are, fill in the blank. Also, you know, with that, there's a lot of research that shows that kids need access to one connected, caring adult. And the more that we can expose kids to connected and caring adults, again, the better that kids will do. Maybe not directly to academics, but this can have an indirect path to academic success. So generally speaking, that's one of the primary goals of extracurricular activities is to promote engagement in school and achievement in school.
Do we track the effectiveness of our clubs through those same lenses?
I don't know that we've specifically tracked that in our clubs, no, but I think we probably have the ability to do such. I mean, that's a kind of a research study in waiting. So that's general research that is out there in the canon of educational literature.
I appreciate it. Last time I asked a question about a club, I think it was the e-gaming club, and the answer I was given at that time was you can get a scholarship for playing.
Well, you can't do
games.
yeah. And likely you can increase, you know, students' resumes when they apply to college and for scholarships look better when they've been involved in extracurricular activities, because colleges know that these help promote well-rounded students, well-rounded individuals. That's what they want in college, in the workforce. The social skill development that I think is referenced in the gaming club is again a secondary benefit of it as well.
So it sounds great. It'd be nice to start being able to tie that together and then show the success of our extracurriculars, two things like that.
Any other questions? If not, I need a motion. I've got a motion. Please say aye if you are for the motion. Aye. Second, or, wait, I'm totally operating for that. Say aye. Aye. It's been a while. Not? All right, that motion carries. Sorry, everyone.
Next item?
Yes, why don't you just continue to take over?
All right, the next item is Jeff Orr has a resolution included in the agenda for a new investment program. It's called MOCAT, very similar to MOSIP that you're familiar with and the district has used for many, many years. So Jeff, you want to talk to your recommendation on MOCAT?
So members of the board, in your packet is the resolution that just authorizes us, it gives us another investment option in addition to PFM or MOSIP or any one of the other financial institutions that we go with. So when we have additional excess balances that we can invest, best we can, right now we're getting 4 basis points, which is the most terrible I've ever seen in my life. But it's just market driven. This gives us another option. The difference between like MOSIP and PFM and MOCAT is they are a fiduciary. They have to treat their money like our money. They have to protect our assets. When you go to a bank or another financial institution, they actually have to have underlying reserves backing the investments we give them. But these people, they are a fiduciary, so they have to treat our money like it's theirs and protect it. This just gives us another option. When we have those excess balances, we look at what we have to invest. We ladder that out so the investments come due to pay the bills, and then we just we get quotes from different banks, and MOCAT would be another one that we would get in addition to PFM or MOSIP, and then we could put our money there. This just authorizes, because they're relatively new in the state, they are authorized by Missouri law to exist, and they created this new fund, and they just want, that's what this resolution is for. Just give us more options. So I'm asking that you approve them so that we can look at them and get bids from them when it's time comes to invest our funds.
So at this time, you don't know what the percentage rates are for the investments?
No, we usually put it out in different blocks for different, we actually have a board policy that tells me what we can invest our funds in, what's legally available and authorized. And so I go out and I get quotes from different banks and different investment portfolios, and I invest the money on whatever we can get our best return on. Sometimes it's not even worth investing, so it sits in a, basically, for lack of a better term, a money market fund, just drawing a whatever the basis points are. Because
1% or less.
Yeah, there's sometimes where it's actually less to go out 90 days on an investment than it is just parking in a money market fund. It's the market's terrible.
Any other questions for Mr. Orr? Now I need a motion to approve the MOCAT resolution. Our second, Moore, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Next item, our office supply contract is up. It's been with Office Essentials now for a number of years, and Jeff has a recommendation on that as well. There's a memo in your agenda.
There is a memo in the agenda, so you can see the price increases in the history there for like the last 10 years. But Office Essentials has been our office supply vendor. Anytime we've ever bid it out, it's actually very difficult to get some of these vendors out there to even bid on it, like School Specialty, they won't bid on it. There's several others that won't bid. But we actually have a good relationship with Office Essentials. We are piggybacking off Parkway. They bid it a couple of years ago. And so Office Essentials came to us because we knew that they bid it. We're allowed to piggyback off somebody else's bid work. But they actually did us one better, and they kept some of our better pricing that Parkway doesn't even have, and gave us the best Parkway pricing for that list of items. So it's kind of a hybrid between the two. And right now they're coming back with a 3.46% increase, which is an excellent increase at this point. And you guys have seen price increases and inflation in the market right now on all kinds of consumer goods. So, and this will lock those in for another year. And so that's why I'm recommending that we go with Office Essentials for at least one more year.
What year did we piggyback on Parkway?
I think it was 2 years ago. I'd have to go back and look at the memo, but I think it was the year before last is when they formally bid that out. And that was a 5-year agreement that they gave Parkway. It was a 5-year agreement.
Okay. I saw in here where we had no increase in 17, an 8% decrease in 18, but then over 10% increases over the last 4 years. So I don't know if that was market related or if they were just trying to square up because of Parkway.
It's all market related. It's all market driven.
Okay. Any other questions for Jeff regarding the office supply? If not, any motion to approve? Our second. More. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Last item is to establish the filing times for the Board of Education election, April 5th, 2022. Mike Swearingen and Tom Emmons will be completing 3-year terms. Mike, 21 years with the school district. Filing times are set by the state, so there's really little latitude that you have, but the board does need to establish those. These filing times would open on they would open on December 7th at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they would close on December 28th. And we'll keep the office open from 1 to 5 on that day. The office will actually be closed due to Christmas break, but the law says that we have to have it open for some hours on that last day. So 1 to 5 I will be here and accept any last minute filings, and then the board will approve that at their January meeting. So I'd recommend to you the filing times being December 7th at 8 o'clock to December 28th at 5 o'clock.
Any motion? Powers, second, Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
That was easy.
Yep.
Craig Moore, would you like to have a comment?
Nice to finally get the boys soccer team in here for recognizing them. Brought a little bit of feel of that normalcy back to our meetings and some of the great things that we overlooked that the district's doing day in and day out. So it was a welcome reprieve from the normal stuff that we've been doing, and really great to see it. Made me smile, and still appreciate all the hard work the teachers and administrators and all the employees are doing in the district to help facilitate and foster moments like that make us smile and make us proud of our community that we're in. So.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Evans?
Echo Mr. Moore, congratulating the Boys and Girls South High School, my alma mater, for their state championship wins. Also, I hope to see with these elections coming up, some of our regulars who come in here every month. I hope to see you guys running and committing some of your time to this. It's definitely a worthy cause, and it's something that is significantly more fulfilling than it is sacrificial. So, good people do that.
Mr. George.
Well, thank you for everybody getting up and commenting. Public input is a great thing. I was at the state conferences and I talked to some of our colleagues on other boards, and they don't have anybody showing up. We don't have that problem, thank goodness. But contact your legislators. I sat through some seminars, and there's a great attack on public education. So get with your legislators and tell them that you're against vouchers in charter schools. Because really don't think we need them out here. We're doing a fairly good job, I think. But then, last point, we do have a lot of work to do in early intervention for self-harm and God forbid suicide. We've got a long way to go. I got a book that I got to read. It's about suicide in schools, and I'll share it with everybody once I'm done digesting it. But that's where we need to focus.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Powers.
I got to go to the new PDC Center, and it's amazingly awesome. We had a meeting, we started with the reading that we're working on, which I'm incredibly excited about. It's a great building. We're going to be able to do so much with it, and it was awesome to go through and see that we can set up and work and not have to try and figure out how everything's going to fit. And it was really great. So good job with all that. It's awesome.
All right. Would you mind giving us an update on, because you and I, Tommy, Gabriel was down for training, but we were down at the MSBA. You want to give us an update?
It was good. I think a lot of the focus was on COVID and communication and how, that is impacting districts and communication with bringing everybody together. A lot of things that we're all dealing with across the board. It felt really good because several of the sessions I sat in on things that I was hoping to learn more. I did learn some things, but we're doing that and we're doing it really well. And it was great to hear that. We met some great people too down there across different districts and had conversations and got ideas on how we can keep moving forward, which is one of the benefits down there and talking with all the different districts. So it's nice that everybody's aware that there's a lot going on, but I think the biggest idea with everyone is keeping that communication open and working with everyone in your community to keep moving forward and, keep getting stronger after everything that we went through the past couple of years.
Just to follow up, the MSBA conference that happens every first part of November is basically a school board's professional development. So it's an opportunity for us to learn and meet with other board members across the state. And in all the years past, it's been down at Tantera, and now it's over at Kansas City. And
a lot of walking.
I wasn't as fond of it.
I love Kansas City.
I like Kansas City, but it just, the lake is closer, everybody's around, and there was a lot of walking, everything was like all over the places.
So, anyway, thank you for coming tonight. Congratulations again to our Southside soccer teams, and we'll have to continue to root on the boys team next weekend. It'd be cool to see them go 2 years in a row. So, thank you, board, for being here. I need a motion to adjourn. Howard, second. George, all in favor?